welcome to the channel. I'm here with Black Pill Radio, and it's me, Tico Tren. The topic is going to be being raised Gynocentrism versus being raised red pill.
Indeed, this is Black Pill Radio.
Welcome to the channel. I'm here with Black Pill Radio, and it's me, Tico Tren. The topic is
not sure if you want to start first or not.
Are you playing it in the background?
Ah, there we go. My bad.
You're fine. Like, wait a minute, I heard an echo.
Yeah, both links. Sorry about that. Yeah, no,
you're fine.
It's a good topic. I'll tell you why it's a good topic. Is because if there's a perfect example of a blue pill being raised in a blue pilled home, you know, my father was the paradigm of that. My father had 8 kids.
Dang.
Yeah, he worked his whole life, you know, primarily at IBM, and you know, he died young. You know, he only died in his early 60s from lung cancer. And you know, here's a prime example of some, you know, the what you'd call the male workhorse being put in this position, you know, to take care of, you know, all of his children and the wife. So this is the idea that somehow that, you know, he was held up as like, wow, look at this man. He went to church every Sunday. He had 8 children. Again, we were born and raised Catholic, so, you know, I'll have all those kids. Oh, but there was
definitely.
But the consequences of it is you had this man who sent himself to an early grave. Someone who could never not work. Someone who was in a position where there was no sense of self. In other words, his whole identity was wrapped around this idea of being the workhorse, of being this this person that had to bring home the bacon all the time, where my mother was this housewife. Now, some people say, "Oh, this sounds wonderful." You know, it's such a, you know, I know a perfect example of a conservative family and whatnot. Well, it wasn't true, and I can tell you why it's not true, because I can tell you what wound up happening. I have 5 sisters. And I can tell you, none of them are conservative. None of them. In other words, this idea that somehow this tradcon relationship, this blue pilled, being raised in a blue pilled home, is somehow going to produce these children who are going to come out to be, you know, these, you know, conservative, you know, upright and upstanding individuals. It's just not true. That's, you know, the whole nature versus nurture thing and whatnot, what have you. It's just a lie. You know, my sisters, all of them were divorced, at least once. My oldest brother divorced. You know, he was married 3 times. There was, you know, the traditional example of the my sister, you know, when she first got married by one sister, taking advantage of her husband to pay off all of her school loans, and as soon as the school loans were paid up, she left him. We hear the story millions of times. I mean, this is being brought up in a blue-pilled home, you know, the quote-unquote, you know, the tradcon home, the quote-unquote, you know, example of, you know, what it means to be, you know, a successful family and whatnot. The things that, you know, that all these tradcons look down upon us, you know, people that are MGTOW or red pill, black pill. But I can tell you this, the situation that resulted was terrible. Absolutely terrible. I can't explain to you the number of abortions that my sisters had. Another sister who was married left her husband when he was ill. Left him, you know, for some other guy, essentially a biker dude. And again, this is coming from someone who was raised, you know, the quote unquote family, you know, father stayed married, 8 kids, Catholic family, whatnot. It was all BS. The actual, and so I saw this travesty that existed, and I saw that it was all a facade. And you know, raising someone in a blue pill home doesn't assure anything. It's all a lie. If anything, the only thing that's going to save you would have been raising someone in a red pilled home, letting them know the real dangers of, you know, society and humanity, and, you know, the potential destruction that can result in various relationships. Because I'll tell you what, the red pill, I'll tell you something, Tico, the red pill actually is something that's very moral, and it actually instills morality, where the blue pill doesn't. The blue pill doesn't. People say, oh, the red pill, you guys are negative. You guys, you look down upon women. It's evil. It's misogynist. No, it's not. It's the truth.
It's the truth, and people hate the truth. It's basically what I say about the truth when it comes down to it. I look at it like this. Everybody loves the truth coming out of my mouth to tell us about them. Then they don't like it anymore. Then they get upset. That's typically how the truth works. Once it's about you, it becomes bad and evil. When it's about somebody else, everybody wants to laugh at that person and pick on that person and laugh about it. The minute it becomes about you personally, if you can't deal with it personally, now it's a problem. That's typically how society is raised and works.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, my family's a perfect example of being raised in a blue-pilled home. How it was all bull. The results did not yield this perfect family, this paradigm, this idealistic view that we have of what what a family should result in. I had my one sister found out that her oldest child wasn't even hers. I mean, excuse me, it wasn't his. Pardon me. It wasn't my brother-in-law's. My brother-in-law was off in the military, and she decided to screw around at the time. Got pregnant, and he came back from the military. He still accepted that child as his own. We hear about these stories. We hear about these stories about raising other people's children. I don't even know the percentage of women who have had children.
Apparently, it's very high in England.
It is.
It's like damn near 50% in England, but like generally they say people across the world about like anywhere between 25 to 35% of men are raising somebody else's children.
Yeah.
And when it comes to baby boomers, that number's either that high or a little bit higher.
Right.
So there's a lot of baby boomers not raising their own children, which really sucks once you think about it.
Yeah. And so, you look at this example, I look at my own example. That's why with these people that are anti-MGTOW or anti-red pill, anti-black pill, are living in a fantasy. Because the blue-pilled, raising anyone in a blue-pilled family does not result in anything positive.
Oh, no, it definitely doesn't.
My own experience has all been negative. The only positive is I seen all this. Because remember, I'm the last of 8. I'm the baby. So I was able to observe all this female nature, which is emanating from my sisters and what they were doing, divorcing and cheating and having children with other men and not being raised in that situation. And yet still, this was the result. That's why I decided, well, I'm not going to get myself involved in this. I mean, this is absolute insanity. Anyone, who would engage in this fantasy of this idealism is out of their mind. And if anything, what being raised in a blue-pilled family, it actually, what it does, it on the surface, it presents something that's a lie to the public, when behind the scenes, the reality is that it's much worse.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Mm-hmm. My mother, for example, she was the she'd always ask, why won't you get married? Why aren't you going to get married? And I always tell her, I go, look at your daughters. Oh,
right.
Look at your daughters. And of course, being a woman, she would always stand up for the female collective. Don't talk about your sisters like that. Well, I'm thinking, wait, my sisters, they're your children.
Yeah, no.
There's this, again, the hypocrisy that even exists in the blue-pilled fantasy of being raised in that blue-pilled family. It's jarring, and I don't know anyone who's actually grown up in a in a blue-pill family who've had any kind of positive results. Behind the scenes,
usually there's not. There's really not, because I always said like a good example of that, like what you're saying about your family, is my mother and her mother. And I'm gonna say to you, I'm gonna answer us. I'm gonna say to Sigma, yeah, they pretty much are, and it's sad. It sucks in this day and age because they can't use somebody, so now they're upset with everybody. The men who actually take men away from them. Then to answer Casual Bachelor, yeah, it's actually pretty nice to actually be able to have a niche for telling the truth. It's sad when telling the truth becomes a niche in society where nobody wants to hear it unless it's about somebody else, and it's very sad that that's actually a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to say about my mother, my grandmother, mom's side, and my mother who passed away that I talked about last year. She actually went off to college, and apparently, because of how my mother was raised, she was the oldest girl, so she acted like she was like entitled or a spoiled brat. She acted like a spoiled brat. She wasn't the oldest child. She was just the oldest girl. She was like the third oldest in the family on her branch. So she went off to school, and apparently my grandmother dropped her off at school, and my grandmother worked in a steel mill to basically take care of her children because this is after her husband died. So she basically went into the workforce so she could take care of her children instead of going on welfare and doing the whole entire, welfare queen thing.
Right.
So she dropped her off at school. Now imagine my grandmother paid for my mom's schooling. My mom got to college, then called my grandmother and said, "I don't want to be here anymore. Pick me up now." My grandma goes, "What? I don't want to be here. Pick me up now." Now this is basically what my mom's attitude was about everything. She was very entitled. She felt as though that she was owed the world, and like pretty much she was so entitled. And my grandmother goes, "Heifer, you're staying there. I'll pick you up whenever I pick your ass up." And she never came to pick her up. My grandmother literally left my mother at school. She literally told her on the phone, "Heifer, you're staying there. I'll come back and pick you up whenever I feel like picking you up." And she hung up on her.
Right. Well, I mean, that's, well, I mean, probably growing up, like you said, in a third world country, the intrusion of gynocentrism and that whole blue pilled mindset, really wasn't present during your grandmother's time, correct?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. That's some stuff that was brand new to her. Like it's one of those things like, because I always say both my grandmothers, both my black one and my Hispanic one will tell you in a heartbeat, "I wasn't out there marching. I didn't burn no bra. I want to be treated like a lady."
Right. Right. Where you, like you said, the baby boomers, take my parents, for example, again, just hid behind this facade of the TradCon, of the whole promotion of the blue pill mindset and the devastating effects because you denied your family the red pill truth, believing that somehow this whole it's really something that really emanated first out of America. I mean, the West in general, but really out of America post World War II. And it was so idealized. It was so romanticized, this idea of the man going to work, proudly going to work and raising all of his children and being a good Baptist or Methodist or Catholic or something or whatever you wish to choose. Just being an example in the community and whatnot. And it was all a facade. What it did was it just allowed that whole, feminism and gynocentrism to actually creep in within the family. And again, the results were terrible. Like I said, my family, I just look at these monsters, again, particularly my sisters and the things that they have got away with. Oh, Casual Bachelor said 25 to 33% of all children. Yeah. I believe it. Like I said, in my own family, my own sister, the number, like I said, I mean, the reality is that is the most dangerous thing that was ever foisted upon us. Was this idea that the blue pilled mindset was somehow the correct mode of discourse or the paradigm by which society should build upon, because the result was catastrophic.
Yeah, definitely, most definitely. And the sad part about that is when I think about it, I start thinking about how the purple pill actually came into play and to actually make it so it's even worse or like giving people, because I'll often think about it like, these are people that think that they're, because like there's a lot of people that believe that they're red pill and they teach the red pill and that's all they are, red pill, but they're really purple pill at heart. And they try to do all the stuff that red pillers do, but they're really purple pill, and they tend to fall back into the plantation for all intents and purposes. So they're like pretty much straddling the fence of the plantation. They're kind of like those people that you always look at that can't make a decision, so they sit on the fence until like a better option comes up, basically. And then they fall on that side, then they get back up on the fence again. And then if an option falls out on this side, they fall on that side. So it's like they pick and choose. They sit there and try to pick and choose like it's a la carte on what they would like and what they would like not to do for all intents and purposes.
Yeah. It's basically the attempt at playing it safe.
Yeah. That's what purple pill. That's pretty much all purple pill is.
Right.
They're basically trying to play it safe so you can capitulate the women and not be not have them angry at you while you're trying to kiss up to them. And then on the other side, you're trying to like basically kiss up to the red pillars so we can accept you, when in fact we're looking at you like you're silly.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is you can't play it safe because anytime you make a deal with the devil, the devil's gonna want it to be returned. It's return what was ever invested. And so when you think that you can kind of straddle the lines with being a purple pill, trust me, the devil it's got to pay your dues.
You definitely got to pay your dues. And the sad part about that, you're going to have to pay your dues very heavily.
Yeah, the chickens will come home to roost.
Oh, most definitely.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I think most of us grew up, within a blue pill home. And again, in my situation, when I had such a large family, the what was being pitched, what was being sold,
mm-hmm.
the results weren't matching up with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you receive all this hate from this blue pill community, for those people again who have so much hatred towards MGTOW or red pill or black pill, I think that there is this, I guess, a Stockholm syndrome, in essence, because they themselves, are espousing this idea, this idealism, this utopian mm-hmm. view of how a family should be raised, but that their whole family is in tatters.
Oh, definitely, most definitely. How could it not be if you? Because if you think about society, I've noticed, especially in the Western world, they always put their best foot forward. They always put this fake facade forward so you can believe that they live well or live good, and if you're not doing that, they're trying to keep up with all the people on TV to pretend like they live as well as those people on TV, which is really sucky to live by. You should never want to live by that, which really sucks. And I think the thing that really agitates me the most about that is how people always want to pretend to be something or not. Oh, a good example of that is the best way I can describe it is a good example of that is when you always see a woman that she goes on a trip with a man.
Yeah.
Even though she's on a trip with that man, she's the one in all the freaking pictures. Like you would think she's on this trip by herself or she did it herself. One of those things where everybody's like, "You go, girl. You don't live your dream. You're living your freedom. You're living your dream. You're living all this stuff." And the sad part about that is she's on that man's dime. He just happens to not be in any of the pictures. So everybody believes that, she's either single or she's been doing this stuff all by herself. And she's this strong, independent woman on this vacation all by herself. Meanwhile, her man's just sitting in the background taking all the damn pictures.
Correct.
that's pretty much the same concept as what I'm trying to go with, because I couldn't really explain it the other way. So I was like,
right,
that's the easiest direction I could take.
So what are the people? I mean, now, like some people that are commenting, like Casual Bachelor, Sigma, MGTOW in the Wind, Mega Man. What kind of homes did they grow up in? You know, we always hear, oftentimes of their story of a marriage, but that's one thing. With this in particular,
MGTOW in the Wind grew up in a 2-parent household.
Okay,
he grew up with a mom and a dad. He pretty much talks about that all the time. So I felt kind of bad after it slipped out of my mouth. Like, oh well, he talks about that in the live stream. That's right. He grew up in a 2-parent household. He had his father and he had his mother, basically, and it was a strong, cohesive unit. So it was one of those big things where, like, he grew up in a two religion system household.
Yeah.
Kind of like how my children originally grew up. My oldest two grew up in a two religion system household.
Mm-hmm.
He basically grew up the same way, only his isn't Jewish, his is Muslim. So he grew up in a Christian Muslim household, and my daughters grew up in a Jewish Christian household. What's up, Stephen Price? And what's up, New Era? As far as a lot of the other people, I have an idea how they grew up, but I don't want to, put their business out there if they're not willing to do it.
Right.
But if they're not willing to do it, but I have an idea how most of these other people grew up.
Right. Like even like Sigma, I mean, he grew up in, saying 8 siblings and whatnot. I mean,
yeah.
So I know it's like, again, have a large family. And again, if I'm not, this idea that if you grew up in, like I said, a very religious family, such as myself, there's this perception that, all your kids are, are well-natured, and they're not in the world or whatnot. And we know that's all bunk. Like I said, the blue pill, the whole entire blue pill construct is
Hey,
built
New Era,
on a lie.
sorry about that. Hey, New Era Monk. Sorry about that. Hey, New Era Monk. How you doing, man? And thank you for the salute to us. And good to see you in here, aka Seafood Black Irish. Go ahead. Sorry about that, Black Bill.
No, I just what's interesting is that if you want to think about the households that you've seen on TV. Now, the red pilled man was looked down upon, say in the 70s and 80s and early 90s. All these TV shows, they said so and so was a misogynist. So they always painted these characters of men in this negative light. When you look back at them, they were actually right. They were spitting red pill truth. But in all these family shows, they were making them look like making them look like, again, as a misogynist, as something from a relic from the past. And what it was doing was painting this picture of the kids watching these shows like, oh, I don't want my parents like that. You know what I mean? And so it was almost like this grooming that was happening long before what we have today, where again, these fathers within the household were reduced to a cook, to a simp, or they were denigrated when they spit any kind of like red pill knowledge, or even laughed at. I mean, there's a lot of red pill truth to the show Married with Children.
Oh yeah, definitely is. I was about to preference that.
Right.
Go ahead.
New Era Monk. Yeah. He said, New Era Monk said there was no stable black family show on TV until the Cosby Show. That's true.
That's very true. That is very, very true.
What's interesting though is even that was a facade though.
Well, wait. Did Good Times come on before Cosby Show, or did Cosby Show come on before Good Times?
Oh, Good Times in the 70s. Cosby Show was started out in the early 80s.
Okay, so technically, they actually had a somewhat stable family because they both had until like I think the dad apparently died in the show or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was actually a stable household before the Cosbys, technically, because it was actually a realistic one on like a working class family, whereas the Cosbys were an upper class family.
Yeah.
Yeah, Good Times was a working class family, and Cosbys were an upper class family. That's right. So technically, they had that, but everybody was looked over that show. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, I believe, I'm not mistaken, and Sifu might know better than I, but the character of the father was killed off essentially because he didn't want to, kowtow to the new direction of the show, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. I see now.
Yeah. But again, you have all these shows out there that were consistently trying to, either show the man as a buffoon, as a caricature, or if they did spit any kind of red pill truth or whatnot, as a misogynist, as someone who's dangerous, as someone who's archaic and old fashioned. So I mean, the whole concept of the destruction of the family was long in the making, and again, media helped shape those ideas.
Mm-hmm. They pretty much did, and that's sad. And go ahead. No, go ahead.
Imagine like yourself. I mean, put yourself in my situation. You're going out to eat or whatnot, and you have all 8 kids. The mom and the dad after church and whatnot. But again, it was all a facade. My dad was a weak man. He tried to act tough, but he was very weak. He would always capitulate to my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is considered, idealism. This is considered, this is the paradigm of what a family should be, the blue-pilled family, where the man works his entire life, doesn't stand up for any kind of truth. On the outside he did. He'd go to church every weekend, but
internally he's probably suffering.
Right, internally he was just this blue-pilled, cuck who just worked himself to the bone and died early.
Mm-hmm.
And the only one who benefited from it is my mother. She got his pension.
Yeah, true. Wow.
And she continues to live on. She never worked. I don't think she maybe had 3 jobs in her whole life, and they were never for a long time.
I believe it. That kind of sounds like my mother. She never really held a job for a very long time either. Now that I think about it, because she was always somehow, some way, she was always able to actually get away with it for some odd reasons with the family. So
yeah,
it was kind of weird.
Yeah. So no, I don't know what it's like to be raised in a red pill family. That's why I don't know. I know you might have some examples again from your grandmother, putting you correctly in your place when you're getting out of line or telling you to avoid, certain situations. I didn't have that. Like I said, I went into this thing blind, and essentially it was, my father, he would say, like, when I was 12 or 13 years old, he's like, oh man, all the girls now you're going to be going crazy over and stuff. It was all this push just to, essentially what it comes right down to it is relationships and breeding. Never, but he didn't have any information on, like, okay, female nature is going to do this, watch out for this potential. I can remember just going through and dating in high school and thinking to myself, what the hell's going on? I'd ask my brother, hey, why is this, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? Again, another one who's blue pilled him.
Yeah.
He gives you the typical answers. Oh, you just got to change this, or you just got to do this, or you got to do this, or you got to talk to him like this. It was all bull. It was all blue pill nonsense, which is just setting up a man to fail. And again, you look at the statistics on how young men, die. They always tend to die earlier,
Oh yeah, definitely. Or they die for the dumbest reasons in the whole entire world. Like, a good example of that is I actually seen a black kid. I shit you not. He literally, like, was being simple, like, because of this whole entire rap culture. He literally was being simple, and there was a family full of white people in a car, like a daughter, mother, everything. And I'm pretty sure they weren't like the picture perfect family. They were just basically coming from a show to basically show off their family. One of the cultural district things where they go to like one of them plays or shows. Yeah. So they're in the car, they're trying to drive home, minding their business. This little black kid, I shit you not, literally sticks his hand in the window, goes blup, 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 like he really has a gun. The father turned around and literally shot him 2 times because that was his daughter. Now, everybody's trying to be mad at the father because he literally stuck his hand in their car towards their daughter and literally said, blup, 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 blup. That man literally turned around and pulled a gun out and shot that kid. And everybody wants to be upset with the father for protecting his daughter or his family for all intents and purposes.
Right.
Well, why do you shoot kids? This is obviously racist. No, he stuck his hand in the car and went blup, 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 blup. And I literally watched the shit happen. And the sad part about that, everybody's trying to be mad at the father for actually shooting an actual kid. Well, obviously he was playing. That's not playing. You don't play with somebody's kids like that, not in public, especially around town where shit like that actually happens. You can't do that stuff and expect stuff not to happen to you. And I was actually laughing that the kid actually got shot. Like, I was cracking up. I go, "Sirs, I'm right," and that's literally what I said. Sirs, that little nigga right. And the sad part about that, it's sad when me being a black person can literally say that about another black person because he was acting stupid. And this is typically the type of men we're raising in a society where they think that it's okay to do something simple like that and think it's okay and not catch any consequences, because that's literally bitch think at that point in time if you think you can't catch consequences for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the whole the family structure is again devolved into completely a gynocentric left-wing mindset. And I will say this to get back to what we were specifically about family, the whole TradCon, the TradCon era. The TradCon era again was a facade. It was never traditional, nor was it conservative. It was a veiled gynocentrism. It was a veiled leftist system, a veiled leftist ideology of which I grew up in. The whole blue pill concept is leftist. It's never traditional and it's never conservative. A TradCon is deep down is a feminist, because the TradCon always gives his power away to the female.
Yeah.
So it's what it is. It's so that's why these individuals that try to the MRA. That's why the MRAs failed, because you again, you can't sugarcoat feminism, and that's all what an MRA is.
Oh yeah.
A blue-pilled family is nothing but a sugar-coated feminist.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It tries to project this idea of this, traditional paradigm and whatnot, when again, in reality, underneath all that sugarcoating is this whole, the whole feminist dynamic. Like I said, my family is, again, perfect example. My mother always deferred to the sisters in my family, the 5 sisters. They were always the ones that were held up to this high regard, where the men were denigrated for putting their foot down or giving their opinion or whatnot. And it was always said, don't yell, don't talk to women like that. You know what I mean? You're being misogynistic.
Yeah.
And again, the reason people were fooled into this is because they believed that the blue-pilled ideology was somehow traditional and conservative, when it wasn't. It was nothing but sugar-coated feminism.
Yeah, it definitely was. I agree with that 100%. What's up, a manly load? And to add to that, because we got in the Latin culture where we refer to, you either fall into 3 categories. I'm only talking about the 2 main ones. You're either a womanist or you're a feminist. Not including the third one, where actually women are actually doing right by their children and family and stuff like that, and actually following actual religious structure, how the family dynamic's supposed to be. I'm not even going to include that group. I'm just talking about the womanists and the feminists. Now, the feminists are always on the far, or the leftists for all intents and purposes. The womanists are the rightist women for all intents and purposes. So how it works is they have a lot of the same ideologies as feminists. However, they're a bit more realistic about it, and they tend to act more like princesses. Whereas the feminists basically just spout off bullshit until something sticks to the wall, or until somebody actually goes, okay, we'll agree to this. Okay, we'll agree to this. Whereas the wominists, they tend to do it a bit differently. They tend to be more femlikita about it, if you know what I mean. They tend to, seduce their way, seduce what they need done into fruition. Whereas the feminists will come to your doorstep and go, no, and just scream like an idiot until it sticks, and you go, okay, fine, just go away. I will do it. Just go away. Yeah. And that's typically the 2 ends of the spectrum when it comes down to it. They're both feminists in their own right, but one's referred to as a womanist because she used her feminine wiles to do so, and the other one's considered a feminist because she's just a terroristic. She uses terroristic tactics to basically do what she needs done.
Right. So, the real red pill family structure was prior to the whole TradCon war.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Which many of us grew up in. Somehow, like I said, the whole feminist concept got its hooks inside of the traditional red pill family, and then converted it again into the TradCon, and the conversion seemed seamless because on the outside, as I said again, it appeared like it was a traditional family with the father as the head of the household and the wife taking structure from the husband and the children underneath them, essentially in a pyramid. That's how it appeared. That's how the TradCon family appears. But in reality, again, that's just a facade. In reality, the TradCon family is no different than the
single mother feminist family.
Exactly. It's just stripped with all the coding, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I always found it very odd because I didn't quite understand the whole entire dynamics until I actually came here in high school. Because I used to come back in the summertime and I just didn't understand how things were so jacked up versus where I actually grew up at. Because I used to come back in the summertime, for those of you who don't know, because my mom eventually stopped trying to actually be a productive human being, and she fell into the trap of actually being a welfare queen, which is really sucky. So she basically needed me to come back so she could prop me in front of the welfare office and then get rid of me and kick me off to my grandmother, her mom, basically for the rest of the summer, and collect the government check on me for all intents and purposes. Yeah. So that's typically how I grew up. And the funny thing about that, the people always think I'm joking when I say this. After I was born, I came back. I was born in Juarez, Mexico. Now, when we came back to the United States, apparently she was able to fudge the birth certificate somehow, some way, so it make it look like I was actually born on U.S. soil. Okay, cool. So that being said, after she got the paperwork that she needed to actually start off the whole entire welfare program, she basically dropped me off at my grandma. She dropped me off at my grandma in Costa Rica and said she'll be back, and she never came back. So we never actually had that actual relationship like most other people did. Like, and she always tries to take credit for all my achievements and stuff like that. And she does a pretty good job at it. Like, oh, my son graduated from high school and he went to college several times, and I'm just such a proud mom, and I did such a great job. And like, no, you didn't. You didn't even show up at my graduation. Grandma, your mom showed up at my graduation. I had to go pick her up so she could show up at my graduation because she couldn't drive because she was too old to drive and she had visual problems. And my grandmother flew from Costa Rica and granddad flew from Costa Rica to come to my graduation. I had family fly from Jamaica and India to actually come to my graduation. So you weren't there. Like, you can't take credit for something that you didn't do. Just because your mom showed up, that don't mean you showed up. And there's just stuff like that. And it's like, how are you taking credit for something you didn't even participate in?
Right. And, you look at that juxtaposition, you say, well, on the flip side, you could have, like I said, a TradCon family. What's the difference between having, say, a mother that didn't show up versus a mother who showed up but doesn't really care. Exactly.
Yeah.
What's
she's just there. She's just there for the show, basically.
Right.
It's all about the show.
Right. And that's why largely the MRAs failed, because they were still in this perception that somehow the TradCon mindset is somehow anti-feminism, which again, it's not.
Yeah, it's not. It's really
candy-coated feminism.
Yeah, it's definitely not. Because the sad part about that, you don't want TradCon. You want what was before TradCon.
Right.
And that's typically what my grandmothers were. Like,
right.
Don't get me wrong. Now, my grandmother, y'all might think my grandmother, mom said she got to be a feminist. She worked in a steel mill. No, she worked like that because she had 8 kids herself, 4 boys, 4 girls. My mom was the oldest of the girls, and my uncle, my one uncle was the oldest of the boys. I think his name was, what the hell's his name? I can't remember his name because I really don't hang out with that family too often. Damn, I'm a sucky nephew. I can admit that because I don't hang out with that family that often because they weren't really in my life. But the oldest boy, I forget his name. But yeah, the oldest boy is the oldest boy. But they had 4. There was 4 kids under each. There was like 3 girls. 4 boys, 4 girls, basically. So after her husband died, who actually beat her ass the whole entire marriage, who like literally beat her ass the whole entire marriage. After he passed away, she actually went on to actually have a better life without him. And if you ever talk to her about him, she goes, oh, that monster. I'm glad he's gone. And that's typically how she feels about it. Instead of she was actually raised in a situation where she was like the abused wife for all intents and purposes, and she took it, and she was a very strong woman. And the sad part about that is, if you know anything about my grandmother, she actually grew up beating up people in school. So if anybody messed with her siblings, she was the one fucking everybody up, let it be boy, male, woman, man, child, anybody her age or older than her, she's always the fighter. So the sad part about that is she actually grew up very strong and actually a fighter. So to hear that she was in a relationship where this was actually happening was actually pretty like odd and awkward, which is like, why don't you just beat him up? And the sad part about that, I found out she could actually beat him up, but she just took it so she can actually portray the TradCon-y type family. But the sad part about that, after he passed away, she went back to the original dynamic where, look, this is how this is working. End of story. I don't want to hear no crap, basically. So she went back to being the strong woman she actually was, and she actually took care of her family via the steel mill. And she gets discounts, and like every now and again I'll show up for the Kennywood trip because she gets like a discount for Kennywood for all intents and purposes because she worked in a steel mill, and like I think it's what's referred to as a Homestead. I think is the name of the neighborhood. So she gets like discounts every year for Kennywood as long as she lives for all intents and purposes. So she'll buy tickets for her whole entire family, and we'll all go to Kennywood and stuff like that. Yep. And it's pretty fun when that actually happens, because like she actually lived a full long life, and she's actually on the decline now, so she's actually going to pass away any moment, which really sucks because she was a very strong woman. But like, yeah, she was actually a strong, intricate part of my life when I was actually in the United States when I came back to visit. And she was like basically the person that taught you how to dance. She was the person that taught you how to laugh, taught you how to tie ties, taught you how to do all this stuff. Don't get me wrong, my granddad taught me all this stuff, but in this family, because she was the only woman and she didn't have anybody around her, she's basically that woman that actually taught you how to do all this stuff. All the stuff that you need to do as a man, like learning how to tie a tie, learning how to groom, learning how to pick out clothes that match your skin tone. Like, they basically taught you how to put your best foot forward.
Yeah, and again, if you weren't raised in something like that, um, okay, let me rephrase that. If you were not raised in something like that, and you wound up, say, becoming blue pilled, then you just follow the regular structure. But if you were raised with a degree of red pill, it prepared you for the world. Like for me, I was woefully unprepared. Woefully unprepared. Again,
A lot of people are. A lot of people are, and it's sad. Like, and they think they are, and they think they know, and it's like, typically, like I've noticed with that, like it tends to be a lot of people that like live in the ghettos. They think because they lived in the ghettos that they're red pill, when in fact you're really
right,
not. You really grew up in a matriarchy, so you're not red pill for growing up in a matriarchy. You're basically just a part of the cog, and you're basically,
right,
especially if you can't take responsibility for your own actions for why you're in the situations you're in. You're just nothing more a part of it. You're just one more piece in the cog in that whole entire
right.
machine to make it work for whoever else is collecting money off of you for your stupidity, for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, you look at
Yeah.
individuals who came from, from you said the inner city or whatnot. Again, it's all about perception. The perception is that, oh, that person grew up in the city, ergo they are red pilled. When no, it's not true. They are still blue pilled. So again, it doesn't matter if you grew up in the suburbs or you grew up in the inner city. They're all the same. It all is just the same form of a blue pilled concept. It's just, again, there's a different facade on the outside.
Yeah, I agree. It's real ridiculous how that stuff works, and then people always want to try to like parlay because they had a tough life into them actually having a. They try to say, oh well, it's a red pill life because of this, and then I always argue, okay, fine. If their life was red pill, then fine. I want you to tell me a time when you actually had to stand in line at a store for 3 hours and get to the front of the line and there's nothing in that store. That's some red pill shit right there. That is some literally red pill stuff. You go to the food store, you get to the front of the line, and you found out there's no more food in the store because there's some type of embargo or there's some type of something that your government got going on with another country. Now you can't get no
Right.
food for your own country. That's some red pill stuff right there. You growing up in a first world country and having a food bank is not red pill stuff because there's always something in place to protect you from actually falling all the way on your face and like totally crashing down because there's a food bank there, or there's what they refer to as the summer lunch program for all the people in the ghetto.
Right.
They had a summer lunch program so they can actually eat because not everybody actually had food in their house. Like that is not red pill stuff. That is you being protected and believing that you live in this great situation when in fact, if they took it away, you would actually be in a much worse situation. Would actually make you red pill.
Correct.
Going to school, like I always say, going to school every day. Every time entered under this bridge, there was always a dismembered body hanging from the bridge truss on our way to school. There was cartel violence that went on around us as we were traveling to school every day. That is red pill. That is red pill in a nutshell. This stuff where like y'all shoot each other over drug spots, that's nothing. Watching somebody get decapitated on your way to school is something. Watching a kid get decapitated at school because his family snitched on the cartel, that is some red pill stuff. And the school did nothing about it, like, oh, we ain't touching that. It's like, that is some red pill stuff. That's when you know you grew up in a red pill environment. This stuff that you got going on is not red pill in the least bit. That is some bullcrap because there's always things in place to protect you from actually really falling hard.
Correct. So what does that say? I mean, when essentially you have really an entire globe being raised in, again, a blue pilled family with varying degrees with various facades on the outside, each one claiming to be red pill or conservative, but in reality, again, just another form of feminist blue pill. I mean, what does that say about society at this point? I mean, how do you turn that ship around? I mean, you're talking about changing the nature and the concept and the mindset of men and women.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people. And the sad part about that is I think they lose faith in people because they believe in these certain concepts so much. This is how I always talk about the reason why the black like blacks outside of America look at blacks in America this way is because we literally come here with nothing, and then we go up to we ascend to something, and we turn around and look at you like, well, what the hell have y'all been doing all this time? They go, well, you don't understand redlining and this stuff and slavery and this. It's like, you do know we got dropped off on the island first before y'all ever got dropped off, period, right? And we made it work, right? So then we came to America, which technically you can say before we got to America, we were redlined before you even got to America. Then we actually bettered ourselves and we got out of that whole entire mentality of slavery and redlining because we made ourselves better within your own society. Now we're trying to figure out what are you doing in your society and why are you fucking up this badly in your society? Right. You have all these chances. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some other things that go into that, but at the end of the day, you coming from a worse off country to this country, there's nothing that you can say to me that will actually make me believe that you really had a tough life. When in fact, you never had to worry about your stores not having anything in them. You've never had to worry about when is your next meal actually going to come. Literally, if your mom, it'd be one thing if your mom didn't make it to the food bank, then we can say, okay, we could talk. But there's always been some program there to save you from that actual thing, where there's no programs in the countries I grew up in that actually could save you from that. Literally, like this is one of the few countries that I've ever known where like you literally got fed at school. School feeds you. Like Costa Rica, we bring our lunches to school. The school doesn't feed us. We literally have to bring our lunches to school. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some schools there now that's trying to catch up with the times and they actually serve lunches. But for the most part, most of the schools in Costa Rica, you bring your own lunch to school. So if y'all really had to do that, y'all would actually be really, really screwed.
Right. That's the whole thing. There really is no family being really raised red pill. Maybe in, like I said, certain places around the globe, there's these bastions of what you say real red pill family structure. But the other problem too is when a country becomes industrialized, people become lazy, and they throw out the red pill knowledge because life has become so easy. And that was the mistake. If my father had really been not a tradcon but a red pill man, he would have, none of those things that my sisters had engaged in would have even been allowed. He would have put his foot down. He, my mother, if she was really submissive to my father, she would have followed suit, and it didn't happen. Again, so it was all a facade. They were just, again, tradcon, which means basically on the surface, as I said again, it appears very red pill, but underneath it all, it's nothing but chaos and this whole leftist gynocentric reality going behind the scenes. Because he wasn't. He was all facade in putting this out there, like he was, the father who brought his kids to church every Sunday, the man who worked at IBM every day with overtime, and the wife at home, being the traditional wife, but it wasn't. It was all facade.
Or what they refer to today as the doting wife at home.
Yeah,
which I've always found funny. Like, why is she the doting wife?
You talk about the situation today, and I think Sandman often brings that up when he talks about, because the technology has made the life so easy on people. At one time, being a housewife was a difficult job, but now because of all the creature comforts we have, it essentially gives her time to have her day freed up from watching, again, all these, left-leaning shows and all these, especially morning shows, you know what I mean? And, receiving all this leftist, feminist empowerment, girl power BS that you perceive on daytime talk shows and whatnot. So before in the past, she was busy cleaning the house, which took all day because it was on your hands and knees, or raising kids was much more difficult. Now everything, again, so because technology, these modern day women have so much time on their hands that they're getting indoctrinated with this, this liberal feminist nonsense while the husband is away at work. And what does that turn into? Well, it turns in her expressing that liberal feminist nonsense to her children that are in the house while the husband's away at work. And again, that's why the whole idea of the tradcon family, as I said, is all a facade. It is really just a leftist blue pill family with sugar coated.
Yeah. And the sad part about that is like it's funny how they preach all these things like independent woman, strong, career woman, this, that, and the other. But at the same time, if you actually listen to them long enough, they'll tell you, well, I want a man to still make more money than me and I want to be taken care of.
Right. Again.
Wait, what? Wait, what?
That's why, like I said, when you say the difference between growing up on a red pill versus a blue pill, there's mainly only blue pill, and there's only, again, different degrees of it, different projections of it, in various.
Like
what's that?
I was about to say the most I'll give somebody in the United States is purple pill. You grew up in a purple pill society. That's the most I'll ever give you.
Yeah.
Which really sucks once you think about it. It's like, well, you're being mean, Tico. No, I'm being honest. Like, legit. You never had to want for anything. You never really had to worry. I mean, granted, you had to worry about your safety every now and again, but you've never actually had to. You never had to actually go through some serious hardships.
Right.
Like, you've always had a whole entire system in place to basically protect you from stuff. It's all a matter if your mom actually participated in it or not. There's none of these programs in the countries I grew up in where, you know, if you participated in it or not, it doesn't matter. You don't get it. You just don't get it. It's like, it's not there for you to actually partake in anyway. And which makes it different. It's like, you can't sit up here and say you grew up rough when you got school lunches or summer lunch program or anything like that, or they fed you lunch in school.
Right.
You didn't grow up rough. You were always getting fed. You may have only got fed once a day, but like I said, try going a whole day, a whole week,
right,
a whole month or two without eating. Then you find out very quickly how comfortable your life is.
Well, I mean, let's look at an example of some individuals who have been successful. I'll use two examples of individuals who grew up in an environment which you would think is very red-pilled, but they were very blue-pilled until later in life. And you want to use Tupac, for example, and Mike Tyson. You know, they grew up in, you know, obviously broken homes and whatnot, you know, in conditions that you would think would be conducive to, you know, hardening me for survival and whatnot. And yet it really wasn't until sometime after, you know, particularly after they received their what I consider to be BS rape charges that were levied against them, both of those guys, that you finally saw the, you know, the red pill come out of them. Because again, they grew up in situations that you would assume that they were very, you know, would be very red pilled. These guys are very hard. You know, Mike Tyson was knocking people out, tough guy, and yet on the side, you know, he married Robin Givens and she screwed him right over.
And then the sad part about that, I always say that after he got screwed over, he went to jail and it came out. That whole entire time that Mike Tyson was going through was pretty much red pill rage.
Right. That's what I was getting.
After he got out of jail.
That's what I was.
When he bit off Evander Holyfield's ear, that was red pill rage.
That's what I was. That's what I was. But that's what I was getting at, is that that you were saying, just because, you know, these men grow up in these single parent households, you know, in an inner city environment, a dangerous environment, you make an assumption that they're red pilled, when in reality, no, they're still very blue pilled. And it's only after these men, again, successful men who had, you know, false allegations levied against them, is when they realized, oh my God. And on the other side, they became very red pilled. I mean, you hear Tupac even rapping about, you know, the truth about women and whatnot, and, you know, in his interviews, but that happened after he was sent to jail. So again, you're right. What you're saying, you get this juxtaposition. You say, like, oh, someone grew up in the inner city in a single household, they're red pilled. No, they're not. They're blue pilled.
They're blue pilled. Yeah, they're basically grew up. If you grew up in the inner city and you grew up with a mom, you're basically raised in a matriarchy, very small subsection of a matriarchy. That's pretty much what it is.
Right.
That's all it is. So you're not red pilled in the least bit. You grew up in a matriarchy.
Right.
You grew up, because at the end of the day, because this is how you know you grew up in a matriarchy. Every single black song always praises their mama.
Exactly.
There's no songs that praised, well, maybe one, but I can't think of it right now. There's really no songs that praise their daddy.
Exactly.
It is what it is. So no, you didn't grow up red pill. You grew up blue pill.
Correct.
You know, even Tupac, Dear Mama, what they didn't want to, they got on the opposite side. Papa was a Rolling Stone on the opposite side. Then you got another thing. Then you got Daddy was never home or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Or Daddy went down to Georgia or something crazy like that for all intents and purposes. Like it's always you're always dissing Daddy for all intents and purposes.
Right.
There's nothing there for Daddy.
Correct.
Except for that Luther Vandross song, which I'm still kind of questioning.
Oh, what?
Dance with My Father Again.
Dance with My Father. Yeah. That was one of his last songs before he passed away. Yeah. Yep.
Was the only song that was actually about praising your father.
Right. And interesting is here's a man who never even had kids.
True story.
You know.
That's probably why.
Yeah. You know.
Well, that and he was gay. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But you know, like you said, that's why, you know, you on the flip side, again, even if you came from my situation, it was TradCon. It was not red pill. It was blue pill. It is all blue pill now.
Unless you grew up in my household, then it's just straight red pill. Hey, why you gotta be like that? Because I can. I didn't even do anything. You're on punishment. I don't care. What? Nothing. Go to your room.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I mean, and now that we've entered in this new, this new era that we're in now, we see that men are not marrying, and correctly so, because let's face it, whether you're a man who grew up again in a TradCon, or if you grew up in the inner city, or if you're even like the herbivore men in Japan. We're talking, we're looking at all races, all demographics, all
across the world.
Again, across the world, understanding that no culture has a claim on a real red pill family. They're all just blue pilled. They're feminist, and they just appear to be on the outside red pill.
Yeah, definitely. And the closest that the black community actually has to actually a red pill community would be SYSBM. That's the closest thing you'll ever get.
Oh yeah,
because I'm not even going to co-sign on the other one because.
What?
No. I'm not even co-signing on that one. But SYSBM is the closest because it takes a mixture of red pill knowledge and MGTOW knowledge, because people always think like all the black people in SYSBM are dating, or they're dating white girls. No, actually a lot of them are actually pretty much either monks, or they're focusing on themselves, or they're all about pump and dump. Most of the people fall into those categories. A small chunk of them actually are dating other people, and a very, very small chunk of them are actually dating white women. Like, it's very, very minute. Like, most of them are dating either somebody from Africa, or dating somebody from Latin America, or dating somebody from Asia. This is typically the women they tend to go for. But people always say, well, SYSBM only dates white women. No, they don't date white people. They don't just date white women. This new age people, these new age kids that you see on TikTok are the ones that's dating all the white women. That's not typically where SYSBM leans to. They lean towards more actual, I'm not going to say TradCon, but more traditional, not traditional conservative, actual traditional cultures who actually meet their milieu.
Right, they're the head of the household. And
and
we've spoke about this in the past, and I know Sifu actually brought it up. I don't think he's on the stream anymore, but I mean, he brought it up in the past, how, specifically, black families in the first part of the 20th century were targeted because they were still this holdout. They were the last bastions of hope, like I said. Like, right.
I've always said that they're the last bastions of hope, and then all of a sudden they fell down, and then the whole entire America pretty much fell down around it.
Right. They were, again, establishing their own communities, strong family structure. And again, the whole first half of the 20th century was basically just to decimate the black male, and to take over. And once they've done that in the 1960s, they had possession of the black female. The white female was already destroyed.
Right. She was already done by that because what feminism was 1920s, 1930s.
Oh,
The first
before that,
wave.
first wave was like suffragist movement, just the right to vote. So you're talking even earlier than that. So they
Yeah.
were
So
they
yeah.
were grabbed earlier than that. But
Mhm.
but the thing was though, here's the problem though, is the embedding of that feminist ideology into the white society was done through means and methodologies of um, uh, simple protesting. It was very philosophical. It was like a Trojan horse.
Mhm.
The black community, they took it by force.
Mhm. Oh yeah,
you
they
know
definitely did.
you had Black Wall Street. Oh, you're strong, independent black men. Being successful. You're getting bombed the hell out of, and you know what I mean. You're getting decimated.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, oh, we're not even going to approach this like we're not even doing no protest. We're just going to shoot at everybody and kill everybody and set everything on fire.
Right.
And the funny thing about that is the only building in Black Wall Street that actually survived the whole entire ordeal was a bank that was a branch of an actual white-owned bank. For all intents and purposes, was the only building that survived in Black Wall Street.
Put that into perspective. Damn.
The only building that survived the whole entire thing. The railroad was damn near tore apart.
Yeah.
But that bank still there. And the sad part about that bank is still there till this day.
Yeah. Wow.
All the
So,
rest of the houses are gone.
So you think about that. Think about, again, feminism was injected within the black community by force, where in the white community it was a philosophy. You know what I mean? Just to ease it in. But for black people, it's like, oh no, you guys are gonna fall in line. Well, we're gonna make you fall in line.
Mm-hmm.
And then the end result was,
they basically demoralized the women by destroying the whole entire town. If you don't have safety and security, you're obviously going to go with what's more safe. It's kind of like the whole entire Genghis Khan thing. Genghis Khan comes into your town. Your husband was the strongest man. Your husband in your town is the strongest town in the world. Then Genghis Khan comes in and destroys everything. Are you going to try to fight to keep your husband alive? Or are you going to go with Genghis Khan to stay alive?
right.
That's typically how the black community went.
Yeah.
Genghis Khan came in, destroyed the ship, and now he's her wife now, or one of his many concubines, or
Right.
one of his many soldiers' wives. Basically, that's typically how that works. Like,
Right. Exactly. And so they really, again, really the last century was this concerted effort to, really again take over the West, and the rest of the world is kind of just falling in line, because, and I hate using this, it's an oxymoron. This is when they say we're spreading Western values. Value, a Western value. What value are we really spreading? We're not spreading democracy. We're spreading feminism. We've never spread democracy, because you know what I mean. We've never spread anything that. Well, I shouldn't say that. Democracy is actually considered mob rule. So yes, in ways we do spread democracy, and of course, the strongest in the mob, or the most powerful mob, is the one that rules. And in this case, it is the whole gynocentric and feminist ideology, which has that power and control.
Because the neat thing about the whole entire feminist movement that people tend to shove under the rug is, if it wasn't for black culture or rap music, you couldn't really pitch feminism to the rest of the world. You needed rap culture to basically be able to pitch feminism to the rest of the world. Because this is not including the ones where women ain't shit but bitches and hoes and shit like that. Not even including that. You had women like Queen Latifah, UNITY. Remember that?
Yep.
I'm not a bitch. I'm not a hoe.
I'm
not a hoe. Yeah, who you calling the bitch? Yeah, basically, you had that empowerment of women basically going through there. You also had MC Light was in that too, and then you had the other chick that was also a part of that too. So it's like one of those things where that actually helped promote feminism for all intents and purposes. And then you had you had on the other side, you had the men talking about slapping bitches and banging hoes and women ain't shit but bitches and hoes and tricks and shit like that. Yeah. So you were able to actually preach that message, for the fact that you had that going on with those three women, and you had the actual masses of black men. The popular portion of it, before that, it was perfectly fine. They weren't talking about pimp smacking women and stuff like that until the gangster era, and that's when you were able to actually bankroll that into like feminism. Like, see, men are misogynistic.
Yep, and here's the thing though.
We got to fix this.
And who was the vice president at that time that came out against that music? Al Gore.
Yep.
Democrat.
Yep. I had to think about that. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, Democrat, liberal. Exactly. Think about that. Came out against this misogynistic quote unquote.
The same guy that preaches climate change.
Right. But I guess what I was going with is that again you have a leftist saying that they're pro-black, and yet the same person was coming out against this
rap music,
which was again
how about burning CDs and stuff like that.
Right,
I mean, well, there wasn't CDs back in the day; it was like records and stuff like that and tapes.
But yeah, they and again not because it was evil or it was dangerous, is because it was given real red pill truth, and that's the real reason they wanted to stop that. And you fast forward to today. Look at the music now. Look at the rap music now. If you're a male artist, you're not saying anything that's red pill now, or you'd get labeled a misogynist and you won't be able to make rap music anymore.
Mm-hmm.
However, the women, that's fine. If you want to be, Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, come out with I don't want to say I don't want to say the wet ass pussy.
You can trust me.
They can come out with that. And this is wonderful. This is great. This is fantastic.
This is brave. This is fantastic. She's living her truth.
Right. But again, 20 years ago when you were coming against the male artist against what they were saying, that's misogynistic. Yeah. So I mean, again,
True.
the whole thing is upside down, and so so within the family structure, what again, and media does play into this whole family structure. Is you're growing up and you're in your teens now, it's still built heavily upon, media and music and whatnot. Look at the media and the music that you grow up around. It's all gynocentric. It's all leftist. It's all feminist. There is no bastion of masculinity or red pill knowledge anywhere except for, individuals.
The internet.
Individuals like ourselves from MGTOW and red pill and black pill. Besides that, IBMOR and SYSBM also, but besides that, there is none. We're like the last bastion of people that are trying to maintain a semblance of society. And not only we're getting attacked, we're getting attacked by every angle. Again, you have the conservatives attacking us. That say, you need to get a strong family and breed. No, you're pitching TradCon. You're not teaching red pill.
Definitely not.
Or you got the other groups like the feminists coming in. You're just misogynistic. You know what I mean? You hate women. No, we don't hate women. But feminists do hate men. Let's be honest. But
Facts. Facts. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some outliers within their philosophy where they go a bit too far and take it a bit too personal, where they do say some mean stuff against women. But
right,
you got to think about it. It's kind of sort of warranted.
Right.
Like if you bust out a man's windows of his car, that's his prized possession. It's kind of sort of warranted. Like, I'm not agreeing with what they're doing or agreeing with how they go about it, but it's one of those things where like you got to get a reality check at some point.
Right.
Because I remember there used to be a site. I don't know if any of y'all remember this site. Way back when in America, there used to be this site called Don'tDateEmGirl.com, where women basically posted on this site about men that they don't want you to date, or they used to just put like people's information out there. Like this person they'll even put like false information, like this man got AIDS, don't date him, girl. Or he likes choke slamming bitches, don't date him, girl. It was literally a site where they were bashing men back in the early 2000s. It was like between 2000. I want to say it happened between 2000. I would say 5 and 2008. 2009 that this site was actually a popular site.
Yeah, but again, it was completely okay for them to express those opinions.
The sad part about that, even if they were false. And the sad part about that, the only reason why the site's not up anymore, because they claim, this whole entire site claimed that they're going to make a don't date him girl, don't date him guy.com, don't date her guy.com basically, but they never got around to it. They basically pitched it so they can make people feel good that they're going to probably do that. The sad part about that, they never did it, and they never were going to do it. And I knew that they weren't going to do it even back then. They goes, well, Tico, they're going to make, no, they're not. No, they're not. They're just trying to make you feel good. They're not. And the sad part about that, the only reason why the site came down is because there was a lot of lawsuits from a lot of people who actually didn't have these actual illnesses who sued the company and sued them women. So they could protect the women. They basically took down the whole entire site, but they still got sued though.
Well, that's the other thing you point out. You know, the idea and the concept of defamation of character. You know, the one thing about men is that we hold. I think all of us would agree that it's always your it's your character that you hold in the highest regard as a man. Because a man could be poor, he could be rich, he could be old, he could be young, he could be different races. But his character, if you ask a man, it's always his character. The character is like number one. And
he can be living in a cardboard box as long as he got his character and his word. He's fine with that.
Right. Once you assassinate his character, you essentially assassinate that man. You can call me any name in the book. Just like someone can call you any name in the book. You can say anything you want about me.
Definitely.
Once you assassinate my character and you lie about me, or you put me in a position which is not true, you've now essentially killed me and you've crossed a line.
Yeah, definitely.
And the problem is this is what women do to men all the time. It's character assassination. They easily lie because number one, it garners them attention. Number two, it garners them power. They now have power and control over this other individual, particularly a man. The group collective is naturally going to follow behind that woman and believe her. And you're literally getting men killed by doing this, or preventing them from getting a job in a particular community by lying. Housing. There's so many. The detriment. The character assassination is the worst thing you can do to a man. Look what's happening to Mega Man right now in his war. Character assassination.
Definitely.
His name is.
And the sad part about that's the best way you can destroy a man and get the law to actually come on your side by saying, well, he did this and he's that and he's this and we were never happy with him and he was so abusive and this, that, and the other. Meanwhile, you got pictures of him kissing, hugging, being lovey-dovey and stuff like that. And it's like, really? Really?
But because, again, as you said, all aspects of society are gynocentric and blue-pilled, they're all going to be on the side of the courts and the side of the woman.
Yeah, obviously. And it's typically how that works. And it's sad that it works that way, but at the end of the day, you have to realize it's a gynocentric world that we live in. So therefore, it's basically one of those things where it's like everything's geared towards the women. This is typically what I say about all the amenities that women complain about. They're being oppressed and stuff like that.
Right.
Everything that's built in this world is built to make a woman comfortable. If there were no women in this world, I'm willing to bet at least 75% of these inventions would not even be a thing.
Right. I would say even higher than that, probably 80%.
Yeah.
Higher.
Like there wouldn't be all types of beds for a woman. A man would be fine sleeping on the stone slab.
Yep.
And be perfectly fine with it. And he can go outside and actually make the world better, but he'll come home to a stone slab. This is typically what Dave Chappelle said. If a man could fuck was it Dave Chappelle or somebody else? If a man could fuck a girl in a cardboard box, he would fuck her in a cardboard box. The only reason why he buys things and buys nice things is so he can get a girl. That is the only reason. He gets nice things. If he has a nice car, he's basically advertising that I want a girl. If he has a nice house, he's advertising that I want a girl. If he has a nice job, he's advertising that I want a girl. This is technically the new age version of, being the biggest, strongest guy in a hunting party. That's all it really is. All this extra stuff means you can take care of a girl is all it really means. Like, you can take care of her. It's a new hunting strategy, basically, where you have a nice car, you have a nice house, you have a nice job. It's nothing more than a new hunting strategy to basically show that you're the bigger, better male.
Yeah. You made a point about, how society is built around making ease and comfort for women. The other thing that they do too, though, is they also create an existence where they do not have to have any responsibility.
Oh yeah, that's pretty much what they created for women.
Right.
By making it more comfortable, they took away all their responsibility. And the sad part about that, in all technicality, if you want to get technical, way back when we were referring to women as milady, That's when we actually help them get rid of all their responsibility.
Yeah.
Like you used to help them out the carriage. You used to step down, kiss their hands. You basically were putting them on a pedestal then.
Right. Being groomed over centuries to put them in this position of superiority when they didn't bring anything to the table except for obviously their looks or whatnot.
And childbearing, that's about it.
That's true.
Like, really, like think about that. Like, and then technically in this day and age now, you really don't need them for childbearing. You can always get a surrogate now, or anytime that they decide to put this new technology on the market where like you can literally have a child by using a male sperm and some type of cell, skin cell, or any type of cell from your body, you can produce an embryo and have your own child. Anytime they decide to put that on the market, it's pretty much a wrap for women at that point.
It's funny how you talk about the getting the woman out of a carriage. You mean the carriage that was designed by a man, built by a man?
Yeah.
That was
for her safety. Right. Mind you, the reason why they built the carriages is for their safety. Right. So just in case somebody tried to raid it or it wasn't open-ended, so they can't get just snatched out of the carriage.
Right. With the horse that was pulling it was trained by a man.
Right.
On the road, which was built by a man.
With the reins and the chain, the links and everything that go with it, that was also made by a man.
Right. and that's what you have. I mean, and yet we put them on a pedestal, and yet they all
literally
nothing.
We put them in a lovely carriage pedestal, and we still do till this day.
and again, as you said, besides their beauty and their capacity to bear children, what do they really bring? Facts.
Or is it in the famous words of TF Film, if you took pregnancy, if you took outside of having a child, what does a woman bring to what does woman bring to a man's life that he can't get from a dog, his best friends, a sex doll, and or a prostitute?
Yeah, I mean, really, what it comes down to, my position, of course, is different on the sex dolls, but I mean, for prostitutes,
I'm basically using TF Film's argument for us. I mean, he basically said sex doll and prostitute for all intents and purposes, but I separated them for that reason on purpose.
Like I said, I have nothing against anybody.
I have nothing against that at all. But I'm basically like, we're gonna recalibrate it for Tico's day. What can a woman bring to the table outside of bearing children, that your dog, your best friends, or you can pay a prostitute to basically do?
Right.
What does she bring to the table if you take all that away? If you pretty much have all that covered?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, your happiness is you got companionship from your dog.
Right.
You got a support system from your friends.
Right.
And if you get an itch, you can always go pay a prostitute, which ends up being way cheaper than having a woman in your fucking house.
Correct, and that's the whole thing. I mean, you look again. They talk about like men purchasing things. It's always for the woman. I mean, like you said, a man, he could live simply, and
definitely.
You could save up a lot of that money and have access to all kinds of either prostitutes, or if you wanted to spend some of that money, say on a fling. Like I'm not against men very, very, very casually dating where everybody.
I don't care what you stick your dick in, but like if you're going to do it and you're going to call yourself a monk, then I have a problem with it.
Right.
Or if you're going to do it and actually be in a whole entire relationship and claim you're a MGTOW, then I have a problem with it. Other than that, if you want to dip your stick in any damn thing like it's a oil stick, I don't even give a damn.
Right.
Like as long as you're keeping it casual and you're following the principles and the tenets, that's all that matters.
Well, that's the whole thing.
No cohabitation, no marriage, no kids.
You want to keep people. We're trying to keep people safe from, and not even safe. I mean, let's face it. None of us are safe. We've all been affected by this on certain levels.
Hell, I got affected in summer camp and in college, and I wasn't even a citizen of the United States at the time.
Yeah. I mean, really, what we're doing is we're just trying to stop the hemorrhaging. I mean, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, we're basically trying to stop the bleeding, the very rapid bleeding, so men won't bleed out faster, so they can have a longer survivability rate.
Right.
Think of it like the military. Your boy gets shot. Somebody or multiple of y'all are on in the military can actually, know some medical training so you can actually apply pressure so you can get your homeboy to the next destination so you can possibly have a high chance of living. Some of them even know how to start IVs on the spot for that reason, just in case they need to pump like pain medication into their best friend or any type of antibiotic into their best friend so that the wound or whatever they got going on won't be infected. There's always somebody on staff in the military that can do that. They're not exactly medical staff, but they're trained enough to know how to handle almost like first aid plus, basically, to basically be able to handle the situation so they can, somewhat stabilize the person so they can make it to where they need to be so they can get the proper care that they actually need.
So MGTOW men are like nurses and doctors.
EMTs.
Yeah, we're like EMTs of the manosphere.
Yeah, we're like the EMTs of for men, for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, and that's true. And the only thing we can do is there's no bringing anyone back to the state that it was, because the state that they're looking for that it was is, again, long before the TradCon era. There's no.
It doesn't even exist anymore unless you find something like my grandmother. And I highly doubt you want to date a woman that's my grandmother's age because you would like to have children.
Right.
If that's the case, so I mean, there are. I do have a lot of school friends that are trying to date my grandmother right now because she's a single woman. Because they just had these fantasies since they were kids. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, ooh, no. Like, ooh, no.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that you see like a lot of these millennials that still support this idea of getting married and whatnot. And you always think about from what context. It's almost like I've never had the opportunity to really have a conversation with any millennials who are still blue-pilled, because my experience with millennials who are blue-pilled, not you, Baron Yam, you're red pill, but a lot of millennials who are blue-pilled, they don't use any logic. I know when we were growing up, I mean, it was different. If someone said, hey, I don't think you should be doing this, you could at least defend your argument.
Yeah.
Today,
I think it's more so they romanticize it one day that possibly it's almost like it's they actually live in a state between Disney and reality for all intents and purposes, but they still have this romantic fantasy that like almost like long time ago in a land far away. That's typically how they view things. I think is the reason why you get those type of people, because they still believe in this romanticization of quite possibly being in a meaningful relationship.
I find
like they don't have. I don't think they have the full Disney princess thing going for them. I think it's more so they know how reality is and it sucks, but they still romanticize. It's almost like they still fantasize about what it used to be for all intents and purposes. The best way I can describe it.
Well, what's odd about that is that what I was alluding to is that it's hard to believe that still happened, because there are no movies like Titanic anymore that is still.
They're definitely not. Oh no, there's not.
So I don't know how they would still believe in something when, from the perspective of media and music, you have Cardi B and
Disney
and Disney and like all these different things where you're like, how do you even have this idea that this fantasy is even possible? There's nothing even to suggest that it's possible. Again, there's no even, again, you go back in the day, you had all these movies that were still expressing it, even though it was bullshit. You had these songs, these blue-pilled songs, especially in R&B, that were expressing it. You don't have that today. You have nothing. You have nothing expressing anything remotely possible or anything even remotely, similar to the idea of a red pill relationship. So why are you still looking for
there's
it?
one. K-Camp. It ain't nothing to cut a bitch off. That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. It ain't nothing to cut a bitch off. That's like the most red. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's one of those things like, well, you should have got yourself in that situation in the first place. But
right.
I commend you for being able to cut her off, because I always say, don't get into something if you're not willing to walk away from it.
Yeah.
And K-Camp is a perfect example of that with that song. It ain't nothing to cut a bitch off. It's kind of like with me when I always joke about, like, I literally have Samsonite suitcases in the closet for any woman that I've ever dated. The minute she started talking out the side of her mouth, I pull that shit right out of the closet and tell her, there goes your party, and just have a good one.
Yeah. I mean,
every single woman I've ever been in a relationship, I have that for.
these and the thing about it is these men, I mean, today that believe all this idea, this concept still exists. Um, they're completely in a fantasy because unlike when I was growing up, I mean, there was at least a more still there was still a remnant of a facade, you know what I mean, and whatnot. Now today, it's not even, it's right out there. I mean, when you look at all the YouTube channels of the women that are out there telling you how to get money from men, you know what I mean, how to manipulate men and stuff. I mean, it is like glaring, and yet to be still blue pill today means that your society has fallen so far that now you have, you know, the truth coming from women like Tommy Lauren, for example.
Or what's the one chick, the one that I showed the other, was I show her yet? Yeah, the other day, the Sheena chick on my channel. I showed her basically how to, what they call it, trauma bond men. To create a trauma bond with men. Like, whoa, nice. Thanks for telling me this. I'm going to put this up on my channel.
Right. And even with, it was a perfect example, even with this information out there now today, to be a man who's still blue pilled is baffling. I mean, it's like the devil coming out and just say, "Hey, I'm the devil. Here I am," and you're going, you know, I have hope for this guy. You know, wait, no,
right? I actually like him. He actually admits to being the devil. Like, yeah, we want to go with him, right? Because he's honest. Yeah, well, he's honest, but he's gonna still trick you and stab you in the back in the end.
Yeah,
there's always some extra shit attached to that.
Right. And that's why today, when you look at this, and you're like, "Oh my God, how can anybody be blue pilled?"
Right?
How can anybody?
Right? Yeah, it just blows my mind on half the stuff that people do, and when they do it.
I mean, even look at the present, you know, the situation in politics. You have, you know, Kamala Harris is vice president, former attorney general. I mean, she ran through the whole police department.
Yeah, she did.
To get through her position.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how can people like, oh wow, this is,
she hit up the whole team.
Like this is what we're elevating to, you know, like the paradigm of, you know, femininity. I mean, she's a thought. She's an old.
Yeah, literally.
She's a cougar.
She's a legal thought. Yeah.
She's an old cougar, and now she's got, you know, her husband now and everything. And I'm thinking to myself,
he's getting skipped on. Yeah. He's definitely getting skipped on. He looks like a little ass simp.
Yeah, this is what we have now this is our political figures. I'm like, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So we're still on for 8:00 tonight, correct?
No, I thought it was 9. Okay, we'll do 8 then.
I think it's 8 or 9. It is either one. I think it's 8.
I set it up for 9. Oh, I think when I originally did, I put it on for 8, but I meant to put 9. But I'll put it back at 8 if you want to do 8.
Yeah, that'd be better.
Okay, I'll make it back for 8.
All right.
Well, catch us for. Are we done? Or are we going to?
Yeah, I'm gonna head out. That was good though. It was a good podcast today. Lots of information. Good one.
Definitely, I actually enjoyed it. We gotta have more of these. Well, we are obviously. Yeah, obviously.
Well, tonight will be a good one if you want to let everybody know what that's gonna be about.
That one's going to be about cuties. We're going to actually give our honest opinion on cuties. I'm going to give it from a father standpoint that actually have a daughter that age, and he's going to give it from his logical standpoint for all intents and purposes. So I might be a little emotional about that later, to be honest with you, because I have a daughter that literally is affected by this crap. Luckily, my older 2 daughters actually made it past that age and stage, but I still got 2 twins that are coming up that still got to go through that. But yeah, it's going to be pretty nice. It's about cuties, and it's going to be our honest opinion on cuties, and we're going to give an unbiased but realistic view on the whole entire thing around the dynamic around it, let it be like culturally and, you know, how it affects society and what effects it has on society and stuff like that. So this should be a great one. So definitely come check us back out at 8:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for that one.
All right. Thanks for everybody coming out, and thanks Tico for having me on.
You're welcome. Anytime, bro.
All right. Peace.
Peace, y'all.